This is the story of Sister Nivedita. Sister Nivedita was born Margaret Noble in 1867 in Ireland. She was influenced in her childhood by her father, a pastor. As a young girl, she would accompany her father whenever he would visit people as part of community visits. These experiences shaped her thinking, and she imbibed a spirit of service. During her school years in London, she developed the capacity to engage deeply. She was interested in a wide range of areas, including writing, the arts, and the natural sciences. She finished her schooling early, by the age of 17. By then, she had developed a love for teaching and education, and so she started working in a school. She came up with several innovative ideas in education. She was influenced by the ideas of education reformers such as Pestalozzi and Froebel, who believed that each child should be given the freedom to develop in her own way. During this period, she also wrote in several newspapers and periodicals in England and soon became a known name among the intellectuals of London. She was the secretary of the Sesame Club, where she closely interacted with many of the top intellectuals of Britain, including Thomas Huxley and George Bernard Shaw. She was also involved in community work, working for the emancipation of orphans and coal miners. Meanwhile, the seeds of spirituality had been growing in her steadily. She was pushing at the limits of religion as she knew it. She sought something beyond all dogma and religion, but was not clear where she would find it. It was in this state of mind that she encountered Swami Vivekananda in the house of a friend in November 1895. When she reached the house, she found the Swami talking to a group of people seated around him. He was answering their questions. In the beginning, she did not find anything new in what he said. However, over the week, as she thought more about what she had heard, she realized that there was a lot more to be learnt from him. In fact, his ideas were challenging some of her dear-held notions. Now she started attending more of his lectures, and she began engaging deeply with what he was saying. All this happened within a short span of just 1 month. She had reached a point where she had accepted Swami Vivekananda as her teacher and was now willing to grow under his guidance. What was it that made her change her mind? Sister Nivedita herself gave 2 reasons. Firstly, she was deeply moved by Swami Vivekananda's extraordinary character. And secondly, she found that he loved truth so much that although he had a system of thought to offer, he would be willing to let go of that system if he found that the truth lay beyond it. Swami Vivekananda presented to her a vision of deep, extraordinary character strength, combined with a wide openness and liberality of thought, and that appealed to her tremendously. Margaret had time to digest and think about Swami Vivekananda's ideas over the next few months. 6 months later, in April 1896, Swami Vivekananda returned to England. He took several classes in London, all of which Margaret attended. The more she encountered Swami Vivekananda, the deeper she went into his ideas, the more Margaret became committed to what Swami Vivekananda stood for. She was now ready to serve the Swami's cause. So she wrote a letter to him and offered her services for his work. Swami Vivekananda took her offer seriously, but did not respond immediately. He had many doubts in his mind. The living conditions in India were difficult. Would she be able to adjust mentally to the demands of a new culture and a new intellectual and social environment? Would Margaret come to India as many other foreigners had done, with patronizing advice and a sense of superiority over India? Over the next year and a half, Swami Vivekananda gave Margaret time to develop her thinking. On her part, she demonstrated utmost sincerity and persistence. At last, Swami Vivekananda said, "Yes, you may come to India." But he was very clear in what he demanded from her. Please come to serve, not to patronize the countrymen. Margaret was ready to travel 8,000 kilometers to a new country and serve her teacher's cause. According to her, the turning point came when the Swami, in a casual conversation, mentioned to her, I have plans for the women of my country, in which you, I think, could be of great help to me. She felt that she had heard a call that would change her life. She landed in India on January 28, 1898. Swami Vivekananda himself went to receive her. About a month or so later, on March 11, 1898, she gave her first talk, where Swami Vivekananda introduced her to the public of Calcutta. Her talk was well received. On March 25th, her spiritual life was also put on a sound footing. She was initiated by Swami Vivekananda into Brahmacharya. He named her Nivedita, the dedicated one. Just a month later, in 1898, Nivedita had the opportunity to go on a pilgrimage, which lasted for almost 6 months, along with her guru, Swami Vivekananda, and other fellow disciples from the West. They travelled to several places in North India, primarily to Almora, Srinagar, Amarnath, and other places nearby. She had the opportunity to see the Swami in his home conditions, and this time the interaction was very different. Swami Vivekananda was now the guru. He challenged her thinking and questioned her thought processes. He brought about a root and branch change in the way she was thinking about her role, about life, and about herself. But it was not just a change in thinking. He also blessed her with extremely important spiritual experiences that elevated her and gave her the strength for the work ahead of her. And most important, she adopted the Indian viewpoint. She was now able to see that India was not just a land with material poverty, but a land blessed with extraordinary spiritual, cultural, and social resources. It was from the Indian viewpoint that she wanted now to serve India and work for her. She was ready to begin her work. First and foremost, she set up her school for girls in the area of Bagh Bazar in Calcutta. The big challenge that Nivedita faced was the orthodox parents were not willing to send their girls to a school set up by a foreigner. They considered a foreigner to be a mlecha, impure and inferior. Nivedita won their hearts by going door to door and pleading the fathers to send their daughters to her school. She promised to take care of them, pick them up from home and drop them back personally every day. She also joined Swami Vivekananda and his brother disciples in their efforts to provide relief during the terrible plague of Calcutta in March 1899. It was here that she demonstrated her capacity for selfless work. Dr. Radha Gobind Kar, one of the doctors at that time, said, "During this calamity, the compassionate figure of Sister Nivedita was seen in every slum of the Bagh Bazar locality." In June that year, she returned to the West with Swami Vivekananda. This time, she went primarily to collect funds for her school in Calcutta so that she could set it up on a stronger footing. She also gave her first series of lectures championing the Indian cause. In the words of Swami Lokeshwarananda, wherever she went, she gave talks on India, not as an apologist as many an Indian tended to be while talking about India, but as one who felt proud of her even as she was. Sister Nivedita returned to India in January of 1902, 1.5 years later. Within a couple of months of her return, her guru, Swami Vivekananda, entered Mahasamadhi. The loss to her was tremendous. Nivedita found herself all alone. Her diary entry had only 2 words against the date, 4th of July 1902. Swami died. Sister Nivedita's Guru was no longer there in person, but now his spirit was working through her in a much more powerful way. When he was physically present, Swami Vivekananda had transformed Nivedita into an instrument for his work. Over the next few years, the instrument would impact a nation.
Sister Nivedita's first area of work was the empowerment of women. Women in those times had several issues. They saw themselves restricted as homemakers. They felt inferior in front of Western women. They had practical capabilities only in the domain of their home activities. And their understanding of Indian ideals and culture was limited to stories and rituals. Under these conditions, Sister Nivedita gave them a completely different vision of themselves and what they could do. She showed them that women too can have a national consciousness, where they could become patriots and nation builders through the medium of their home life. She also asked them to affirm who they were and be proud of their Indian traditions and culture. She exhorted them to develop several practical capabilities so that they could become self-reliant. She awakened in them a love for the ideals that were underlying all the stories in India. In the implementation of this vision, she was joined by Sister Christine, a fellow disciple from the West. Together, they ran the school in Bagh Bazar. Meanwhile, Sister Nivedita was also playing a remarkable and important role in the Indian political awakening of the 1900s. The first meeting of the Indian National Congress was held in 1885. It was after this that the political awakening of India had begun. It was at this time that across India, a small group was beginning to become aroused with a national consciousness. Sister Nivedita joined this group and brought into them a new and unique sensibility. She helped them recognize that India's political awakening was like a dormant volcano. She drew attention to the fact that this awakening would be successful only if there was an equivalent cultural awakening that was based on a reaffirmation of our faith and love for our civilizational ideals. She catalyzed the cultural awakening across different domains. In art, she inspired Abanindranath Tagore, Nandalal Bose, and others to develop the Indian style of painting. In science, she supported J.C. Bose through his years of struggle. In history, she inspired Jadunath Sarkar to write history from an Indian point of view. She was closely associated with Rabindranath Tagore and the Tagore family. She inspired youth through her lectures across the country, both in North and South India. She spoke of the need for unity and reminded them of our civilizational ideals and traditions. She also wrote articles in various leading journals and newspapers, supporting nationalism and opposing the cause of the British. In short, she played the role of a catalyst for India's freedom movement. But her work did not stop there. She developed a genius for seeing the highest and innermost ideals that govern Indian life. This insight enabled her to represent India differently from others. She wrote several books and articles on India and its history, which were read by intellectuals across the globe. Her ideas are still relevant to Indians because of their originality and vision. She never lost an opportunity to share India's greatness with Western audiences. In fact, her eloquence moved the London correspondent of The Hindu to call her a champion of India who was animated with an intense sympathy for its people. She also wrote beautiful books on her guru, Swami Vivekananda, which are still read widely. Within a span of 10 years, Sister Nivedita was influencing a range of leaders and change makers. The tireless work and intense austerity took its toll on her health. Sister Nivedita's work came to a sudden end at the young age of 43.
She was mourned by a nation. Here is what her contemporaries had to say about her. Rabindranath Tagore called her Lokmata, mother of the people. J.C. Bose remained grateful for her unflinching support during his struggle as an Indian scientist who received no support from the British. Sir Jadunath Sarkar acknowledged Nivedita's influence on his thinking. She told him never to bow down to any foreign model. The revolutionary freedom fighter Bipin Chandra Pal was inspired by her passion and intense love for India. Eminent sociologist and nationalist Binoy Sarkar called her Swami Vivekananda's miraculous discovery for India. Writer and folklorist Dinesh Chandra Sen remembered Nivedita as a living example of the ideal of selfless work. The words on her epitaph read, "Here reposes Sister Nivedita, who gave her all to India."